Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit tre.radio.
Discuss, challenge, inform, comment, Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe.
Giles Brown.
Live comment and discussion with studio guests. Viewpoint.
It is Tuesday, the 19th of September. You're listening to Viewpoint Talk Radio Europe's current affairs programme with a panel of invited guests discussing the issues of the day with you for the next 2 hours. Can't think what I'm going to be talking about to kick off the show today. Joined this morning by Tim Stafford and Alf Brewer. And also after the first and the second of the show, I'm going to be speaking to the owner of a Bully XL dog, the dangerous dogs that Rishi Sunak said he's going to get rid of. I'll be talking to him about the breed, how dangerous or not they are. If you want to get involved with today's show, anything else crossing your viewpoint radar, of course, we're talking about the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, Brexit, you name it. You can talk about it here on Viewpoint. If you do want to get involved, these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
TRE Talk Radio Europe.
Viewpoint with
Giles Brown.
Always live, always lively. Joined in the studio this morning. To my left is Tim Stafford. Morning to you, Tim.
Morning, Giles.
Good to have you with us. Fabulous shirt, by the way.
Oh, it's an old one.
Is it really?
Yes.
It's come back in fashion, has it?
It has. It's returned.
It's returned.
And it still fits.
And it still fits.
Yes.
Marvellous.
It's the Giles Brown fashion show.
Exactly. Well, I thought we put a bit of... because obviously we dress for radio, don't we, Alf? Alf Brewer joins us as well. Morning to you, Alf.
Yeah, dressed down as usual.
Well, exactly. Good to have you.
Good morning, Giles.
Good morning to you, Alf. Good to have you with us as well. Going to be looking at a couple of subjects this morning, obviously, but let's have a look at the papers first to see what's making the front pages in the UK. No surprises out there. A number of papers leading with the news that police have received a report of an alleged sexual assault in 2003 following media allegations against the comedian and actor Russell Brand. The Times says a fifth accuser went to the police just hours after the Times, the Sunday Times and Channel 4's dispatches first reported that Brand had been accused of sexual assault by 4 other women. The Sun's headline asks how many more? The paper says it's understand that more alleged victims are set to come forward to talk to police. Brandt has strongly denied any wrongdoing. The Guardian leads with a warning from the Metropolitan Police that it will take years to root out rogue officers. The paper reports that figures from the force show some 201 officers are currently suspended, whilst around 860 are on restricted duties. It says a soul-searching overhaul of culture and standards prompted by recent scandals involving serving officers has accelerated sackings, with 100 dismissals for gross misconduct in the past 12 months. Daily Telegraph says doctors could be forced to work during strikes under plans to protect patients during successive walkouts. It says ministers are proposing the introduction of minimum service level regulations, which would guarantee a defined level of staffing. The Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, has told the paper that the dangers posed by what he calls the relentless and escalating actions of the British Medical Association meant that steps were necessary. Consultants began 2 days of strikes on Tuesday, with junior doctors also walking out on Wednesday. For the Daily Mail, a pledge by the Labour leader to get a better deal from the EU if he becomes Prime Minister is, in the words of its headline, proof you can't trust Starmer on Brexit. So Keir has spoken about a closer trading relationship with the EU. The Mail says Conservative MPs are warning that he will surrender Britain's sovereignty and take it back to square one. Daily Express says number of people who've signed its petition calling on the government to preserve the triple lock on pensions has reached 190,000 and counting, it says. The paper says polling shows that more than half the nation supports keeping the measure, which guarantees that pensions rise in line with wages, inflation, or 2.5%, whichever is greatest. But that the Pensions Minister, Laura Trott, has refused to confirm whether pensions will go up next year as much as expected. Meanwhile, the Daily Telegraph, The Sun and The Express all feature pictures of the Princess of Wales laughing as she tries on a life jacket at the Royal Naval Air Station, Yeovilton in Somerset. She pulled the jacket's cord and, the Telegraph says, was taken aback about how quickly it inflated. Meanwhile, back to those front pages again. Russell Brand, pretty much on all of them. The Daily Mirror, cops launch probe, new brand assault claim. The Metro, cops probe new brand sex claim. The Times, woman goes to Met Police after brand investigation. The Eye, police examine new Russell Brand sexual assault claim as live tour is axed. There's also cancellations because his live shows have been cancelled after a food bank and a drug addiction charity severed ties with Brand, and his book publisher paused all future releases. The Sun, Brand's victims, they put those in commas, step forward. How many more? The Guardian leads with Met warns it will take years to clear out rogue officers, and also a picture of Liz Truss. Remember her? Who crashed the economy? Truss blames the Bank of England, but not herself. Daily Mail. They've got top of the Daily Mail is Brand, obviously. BBC bosses let Brand mock and humiliate me whilst I was a grieving mother. And meanwhile, proof you can't trust Starmer on Brexit as Sir Keir vows to rewrite deal with EU ahead of meeting with Macron today. Tories warn he'll surrender hard-won sovereignty. Daily Telegraph, doctors will be forced off picket lines. This is the minimum service level. The paper quotes Health Secretary Steve Barclay saying the new measures are necessary in the face of ongoing strike action. Daily Express, 190,000 counting, hands off triple lock. And finally, for some balance in our headlines this morning, the Daily Star. Daily Star tells readers that if you want your kids to grow tall, you'll need to show them a bit of love. The paper says scientists have found that a loving family is just as important for growth as a healthy diet or good greens. If you want your kids to grow tall, you'll need to show them a bit of love. I love you. And I think there's an insert, a cutout of Peter Crouch who goes, I must have been very, 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 very loved. And those, for better and probably worse, are your headlines. This Tuesday, the 19th of September. Come on, Alf, I know you're bitching.
All the love that you showed my grandson means he's now 6'3".
6'3".
And makes you look...
I'm standing on a box here at the moment as we speak.
You're still only 5 foot.
Yeah, exactly. Let's not even go there, Thumbelina. Right then, let's move on swiftly.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Right then, takes a deep breath. Russell Brand. He's not the Messiah. He's a very, very naughty boy, seems to be the general public opinion. Now, I know, Alf, you're shaking your head in this one because there are, but are there more serious stories? Should we be dealing with this? Is it all a media lovey storm in your opinion, Alf? Should we be concentrating on more? I mean, at the end of the day, are you thinking that who cares what Russell Brand gets up to?
Oh no, I do care, and I think it should be dealt with. It's not Russell Brand either. It's all those organisations that carried on allowing him to get away with what they knew he was up to anyway, and allegedly.
Yeah.
We have to say allegedly, but that's a bit like saying all those other people that have been locked up, allegedly locked up. No, it's just nonsense. Anyway, the biggest issue, we should have started the programme with a minute's silence because it's the anniversary of the 49 days of Truss.
Yes.
She's gone a year ago, And I don't want to belittle the
I remember the moment. I remember the moment where I was driving. Yeah. I was parked outside Swan School, and I went, "She's going to go. She's actually going to go."
Yeah, and everybody was going too late. Yeah. 49 days too late. Should never have been there in the first place.
Yeah.
We should also have just a little bit of thinking about the poor people in Morocco and Libya as well, through what they're going through. It must be absolute hell. 11,000 known dead. How many more unaccounted for? Another 10 or 11,000. Virtually half of a town wiped out. I mean, I'm not sure how you can cope with that. There was a story yesterday. 59 people from one family dead. Yeah. Not just missing. They were dead, confirmed dead. And you go, wow, that must be some trauma to go through. So we can have our little political chit-chats and laughs and that, but serious issues in the world, sometimes you just have to give them a bit of respect.
Look at the pictures coming out of Libya, 11,000 people, swept away. Doesn't bear thinking about it, is it? A decent-sized town just literally wiped out by two downbursts.
And if you put on the ones who are unaccounted for, the match against Malaga, by the way, who are storming up the league, they're third in the league now, and they won 3-0 on Saturday.
Okay.
And their crowd was the same size as the number of people who were wiped out. Can you imagine Malaga, La Rosaleda, just collapsing?
Yeah.
And no chance for anybody, just collapsing.
Awful.
And you just go, wow, 19,000 people
I was
wiped
talking
out.
to a friend of mine who works at a charity agency, and they work in Morocco. And she was saying that, yes, Marrakesh was damaged because of the old buildings, but it was the High Atlas that was the problem, and it's the roads have been wiped out. And I've done those roads. And she said, they were getting reports that you just can't get to them, and all you could hear on the first night was screaming, which is quite horrendous. So it does make you take pause for these things. Absolutely. And when they happen, they happen so close to home, as you know. If we
you only have to go back inland here a little way, just beyond where you live, and the roads become almost impassable. Sometimes you just have a bit of rain and you get all the rockfall.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's just rockfall.
So anyway, let's move on. Let's
lighten it up a bit.
Let's lighten it up a bit. But let's have a look at this. I mean, there's accusations that it's Sarah Vine says allegations against Russell Brand are shocking, but even, quote, and this is her words, not mine, even a toe rag like him should surely be given a fair hearing. The former comedian, now a self-styled alternative lifestyle guru and wildly successful conspiracy theorist with 11 million followers on X and 6.5 million YouTube subscribers.
Not anymore.
I know. It's been taken off. I know. So I'm aware that happened. Is accused by now 5 women of a catalogue of abusive behaviour, including rape and numerous sexual assaults between 2006 and 2013. The investigation by The Times, The Sunday Times and Dispatches on Channel 4 included the story of a woman who said she had a sexual relationship with Brand when she was 16, and another woman who was treated at a rape crisis centre after Brand allegedly forced her to have sex against a will in his Los Angeles home. Brand denies the allegations, and on Friday released a video saying they're aggressive attacks by mainstream media outlets trying to construct a narrative. No one should downplay what's being said about Brand. Said Brendan O'Neill at Spiked, but yet we should now should we accept he's a rapist, that he's guilty of it all? To my mind, no. The skepticism doesn't mean thinking the accusers are liars, but reserving judgment until all the evidence has been presented and tested to the limits. There's already a clamour, counted Ian Birrell on the I News site, carefully stoked by Brand that he's the real victim. They were witnessing trial by media, and yet trial by media is sometimes the only course of action, says Birrell. Looking at those accusations, a lot of people saying the innocent until proven guilty, as if a criminal conviction was now the minimum standard of verification for a newspaper investigation. Journalists contacted hundreds of people, interviewed alleged victims for hours, and pored over substantial evidence, including notes from a rape treatment centre, text messages and photographs, and it's been rigorously legaled. But if your first reaction, this was Leith who wrote this in The Spectator, Sam Leith. Leith says, if your first reaction is to speculate about the motivations of the reporting, you're a damn fool. So here we are again, another media personality in the spotlight. This one is different because it's Russell Brand, who's built a persona on a couple of things. His YouTube channel, the conspiracy thing, he's got followers. I mean, people absolutely think Brand is bang on with his views. Tim Stafford.
Yes, Giles, interesting the level of reporting, but the case that interests me most is the American, who I think was a colleague of his, woman who immediately after her encounter with Russell Brand went to a rape crisis centre, showing her own interpretation of what he had done to her as being effectively a rape. Now, the police in the US, I don't know what the extradition issue might be eventually, but that it makes her case a great deal stronger, that she was under the impression she had been raped. And even though there were no witnesses to this, that is what she stated. The 16-year-old who is above the legal age of consent, and that varies worldwide from age 13 in some states of the US even, to our British age of consent, which is 16, and she hasn't alleged that he raped her, although the coercion factor, the morality of it is certainly reprehensible, it seems. The law can only do what is given to it in a legislature, as it were, in bringing prosecutions. I mean, the CPS can't bring about a sudden change in our laws to fit what seems to be a moral transgression. So, as the stones are unturned with Russell Brand, I'm reasonably certain that I would have thought that other allegations will come to light. And are those sexual attacks in a form, or are they against what is the prevailing law? That's what will be coming up. Who knows, one word against another. I personally have a very dim view of Russell Brand, but that's my personal view. A prancing narcissist who's had undue influence with his sort of estuarine Essex quasi-wordiness and eccentric appearance. I'm not a fan. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about manipulation, immorality, and in some cases, presumably, crime.
Indeed. It doesn't, I mean, after what's been happening with the BBC and other media outlets with other presenters, we seem to be, do you think this is, you talk about stones being overturned or stones being lifted up. I mean, the allegations are coming in that, you know, a BBC driver picked up this 16-year-old and drove it to home. Again, as you say, there's nothing legally, it's not breaking a law here, but it's the moral standpoint. And obviously it's, you know, I mean, morality in the media is a whole different kettle of fish. Alf.
If we learnt nothing from how they handled the Savile stuff, we will never learn anything ever again. So what Brand has been doing, and you have to listen carefully to what these people are alleging, it borders heavily on grooming. And it's kind of, forget the law, set the law to one side, right? There are organisations that have their own set of standards, supposedly, that they're supposed to abide by. The BBC have been bad and poor and worse than poor for a number of years at doing this, and here's yet another example. So, a young girl being picked up in a car and being taken to him, no, they're not breaking the law, but that's public money. The car's provided, the chauffeur's provided by public money. The BBC must have known, and if they didn't, who's the manager who's in charge? Who deals with the carpool? Who deals with the chauffeur who's employed to do it? Who allows Brand to use? And it wasn't just one instance. The one instance they've highlighted is because they picked her up from school. But she's also said that on a number of occasions, the car was at her availability when she was at the BBC and other places in order to take her wherever she wanted. That's what she said, not me. So there's the law, and you're quite right, Tim. You know, the law, to be honest with these cases, the law's got 3 hands tied behind their back. They've got both their own hands and the hand of anybody else who's making an accusation. Because, like this woman who went to the law centre, I would have imagined they'd have had a conversation that went, do you really want to make this allegation with no... Because this is what will happen to you in the press. And it's always the press. And it's not trial, and this is what's awful about it. It's not trial by the press about Brand. It's trial by the press about the people who've been abused. Because everybody will know, eventually, all their names will be known, eventually all their stories will be out in the open, but Brand can sit there and say, it's nothing to do with me, and you can't mention my name, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. And you just have to, there's a whole litany of these things. What's his name? King, the guy who was the music manager for 10cc, you know, he gets put away for paedophilia. There's the guy who I cannot tell you how beside myself I was, Max, whatever his name, Max Clifford. You know Giles. I used to deliver one of the local papers to Nueva Andalusia, and he used to use the little kiosk cafe sitting outside the central commercial by the supermarket. And he was, and I went up to him one day, it's quite stupidly, and said, Max, I don't believe any of these stories. They just seem so unreal. And yet he gets banged up, and it's not only worse than anything. And then we have, you know, all the cover-ups that must have occurred and did occur with Rolf Harris. All the cover-ups, not just by the BBC, but by, you know, he had a special room. I used to cover Papworth Hospital. It is a brilliant, brilliant place. But why did they allow him to have a room there to use and abuse his will? Somebody somewhere must have known a little bit and never raised question marks. So, OK, we forgive them for 30 years ago and 20 years ago, but we're not talking 20 years ago now. It is for one of the allegations against Brand, but so what? He's there now. He makes money out of this X or Facebook or whatever it is. I'm glad they've stopped him making money out of it until the investigation's completed. And yes, he is entitled to be dealt with properly and fairly, but not set aside from the media having their pop. He is, no, it's like Cliff Richard. The big thing with Cliff Richard wasn't about what the accusation was. It was the way the police handled Cliff Richard, sending the helicopter in, you know, going into something without any real evidence. Well, I think there's enough evidence now to say Brand has got something to answer for. That's what the police say, isn't it? You've got something to answer for. We're not accusing you, we're not charging you, but you have got something to answer for.
Tim?
Yes, I think what we have to remember is that in whichever country one resides, every square inch of what you're standing on has that law applying, and that every citizen of that country is bound by the same laws. And that, you know, even though there's slight variance across Europe as to how these things are, or cases are brought, and CBS in the case of the UK, you have to have a guideline in terms of prosecution that law has been transgressed. We can't. We all are entitled to that, including Russell Brand. Yeah. And if, for example, under the microscope, every citizen of this or every expat in this country were put under a microscope and had their conduct and sexual adventures, well, that's probably the wrong word, but made public and questioned, you know, there might be a fair view, but in the case of the body of evidence as it is emerging so far, there certainly seems to be a case to answer in the case of Russell Brand. And but one has to bear in mind that trial by media, which very frequently goes wrong, has to be looked at in a sound way, that we can't necessarily believe in what is said by people who are trying to sell newspapers.
952 78 4000. If you've got an opinion, looking at the WhatsApps coming in. Hi, Giles. Let's start with this one. Jonathan King, Paul Gambaccini, Cliff Richard, William Roach, Ken Barlow, plus 9 others either not prosecuted or found not guilty in recent Operation Yewtree. I may be old-fashioned, but a fundamental part of justice all over the world is innocent until proven guilty. This one in. Hi, Giles. I have to express a strong opinion on the mainstream media's 4-year investigation, though this has been put in quotes, of Russell Brand. It might be fairer if the accusers had put their faces in the spotlight. Accusations from the shadows are pathetic. He was well known as a Lothario of note. Any female getting involved with him knew what he was like. Move on to today. 6.5 million viewers is a big sucker punch to the mainstream media. I suggest that rather sending fame-hungry female journalists after one man who behaved badly 15 years ago, they dump the hypocrisy and invest the money and time investigating the perpetrators of child trafficking like the Sound of Freedom. Shame on them all. P.S. If you see what walks around the streets of Marbella, Banús and Elveria in current weeks in see-through clothing and thongs on the streets and shops, is there a case for common sense here? Interesting. 952 78 4000. Meanwhile, met Max back at Stars in 2012 when I briefly worked at Black Tower. He said, "Are you stalking me?" as we use the same cafe in Weybridge. This coming in. This is from Michael Macy, who I interviewed a while back, and he was in the Dispatches documentary. He said, "I spoke out in response to the recent Dispatches documentary on Channel 4 about Russell Brand. I spoke out because I want my daughters to grow up in a world where men are not demeaning to women, a world in which the abuse of power isn't normalized, a world in which people are held accountable for their actions, especially those of the platform and millions of followers. I'm not a leftist, I'm not woke, I'm not apologetic, I'm not a bot, I'm not being paid to speak out a bit. I'm none of these things I've been accused of by some of the Russell Brand's followers. I'm a man who's made many mistakes in my life. I'm not perfect. I spent time in prison as a teenager. Today I'm a father to daughters. I'm a husband, and I've been sober for nearly 16 years. When I first got sober, I looked at my behaviours. I realised I had been disrespectful towards women many times in my life and decided to change my ways. I took accountability for my actions and made amends for the harm I had caused. What I offered to Russell was the same gift of accountability that was given to me. Accountability helped my change my life for the better. It's a painful gift to face yourself and take full responsibility for your actions, but it's a necessary one to avoid repeating the same destructive patterns. If I don't support the women in this, stand up for what's right and hold the men who are disrespectful towards women to account, then what kind of type of world am I creating for my daughters to step into? My responsibility as a man who has seen the error of his ways and now trying to embody healthy masculinity is to challenge the men around me that I see who are acting out of alignment. This often means I get judged and ridiculed myself, but it's a beautiful burden to carry. I'm willing to be disliked in my pursuit for creating a safer world for my daughters. It isn't about hate. It's about raising the standards for all men to become better so we can all live in a safer world. That's quite strong from Michael.
Yep. And I can concur with everything he says. I suppose sometimes it's because you come from a fairly, not unique, but a fairly unique position. In so much as I was a trade union, very active trade unionist, as a lay member, so I wasn't paid. I was a volunteer trade unionist, and I have 3 daughters. And I worked in an industry that was effectively male-dominated. I worked for what is now British Telecom, but was then the General Post Office. In the telecom side, it's nearly all men. Most of the women that worked in the industry were either clerical people who worked in the offices, or, believe it or not, the drawing office staff. Nearly all the drawing office staff were women. one of the things that I learned fairly early on, and my family certainly keep you on the straight and narrow, having 3 daughters, you just listen to the fear factor that comes out all of the time about things that are said and done, and you're in an environment. And I remember going into one of the offices in a telephone exchange, and they had all the pin-ups on the wall. And I said to the guys, do you think that's reasonable to have that up there? You suppose me have one of the women come in and they see all this crap on the wall. I didn't use crap, I used the normal East London
Right, okay,
word.
yes.
And they started to have a go at me, and I thought, this is just wrong. So as a union official, I went to management and said, you should stop this, ban it. Like they did in the fire brigade, like they did in the police force. You get in. I remember at Shooters Hill Fire Station, they went in after the Stephen Lawrence thing, and there was a big issue about right wing and all that misbehaviour. They went into the lockers of the firemen in Shooters Hill Fire Station, and every single locker had pin-ups on the inside of the doors. They were all disciplined, and because it's against their own company thing. So, which is why I'm saying to Tim, actually, yes, there is the law, but there's also the law of the company, and the big organisations should spend far more time looking at what happens without all this silliness where they go, you're on immediate dismissal and all that. Immediately dismissing somebody for doing something pretty pretentiously foul doesn't teach everybody else in the organisation why they shouldn't do it. But I can tell you, the and everybody laughs and jokes, page 3 in the Sun and all that. And I used to go, my daughters look at this thing and they're not keen on it and they're not happy with it. Why is it that we can just carry on doing it as if it doesn't matter? So I think a lot of these organisations, I will come back to it, your brand technically, allegedly has done something wrong, but all the organisations who he's ever been involved in, including the film industry in America, all of them have got some responsibility to not shouting him out, and they must have known. They must have known.
But it's the whole open secret culture, Tim.
Yes, the ethos of these companies needs to be addressed, and the BBC is sort of the prime candidate for having a further investigation.
Easy pickings.
Yeah, but I completely agree with. Is it Michael's letter that we've just had read?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, brilliant letter, and quite right. And my daughter works in medicine and in the UK, and she hasn't, but if she had given me an example of at any point that she'd been had suggestive remarks, harassed in any way sexually, I would have been absolutely furious, incandescent, one might say. So, in a sense, as Alf is saying, one has to be, especially in cases such as Russell Brown's, a male feminist, in that we really have to go backwards in time to a higher moral standpoint and engage with this. It can't be allowed to go on. We have to be protective of women as far as they need protection. Many would say they don't, but and behaviour is something that can be changed, and behaviour such as Russell Brand's, the sort of inherent manipulative abuse that, as it seems, allegedly, is something that needs to be addressed and given as an example to those who may or may not need to change their behaviour. I'm very keen on that idea, but the nuts and bolts of it do still remain, that even though he's had his means of livelihood or having that subtracted from him by degrees, which is quite right, who would want to be associated with somebody who behaves?
Yeah, but this is the thing. We're reporting from the concert, because he did his first live show in London over the weekend, and he's got a cult following, and I use that word advisedly, by the way. He's got a following, 6.5 million followers and whatever, and they believe he's hit a nerve about people who believe there's some great meaningful thing, and they believe, yeah, exactly. I mean, if you look at Brand's YouTube, it's following, it is following the Obama did this, Tucker Carlson is predicting World War III, what they didn't tell you about the vaccines. He comes out, the whole image he's presented, and look out, because here comes the soapbox, the whole image he's presented is some sort of like guru-like figure, strangely enough,
he's John, but with influence.
Right, so moving swiftly, yeah. But the thing is, but hang on, no, that's not. Yeah, but this is the point. The reason that somebody like Brand is he appeals to various groups within society who feel that they have been overlooked and that there's something bigger than we can understand going on. Where a lot of people have. And it's interesting with Michael's point, because where a lot of people have problems with him is he set himself up as this sort of, he had a meeting with Miliband. Now, I'm not saying the Labour Party were courting him, that's different, but Miliband, who was perhaps not the best Labour leader at the time, called him as a youth leader. I mean, well, that's only going to be topped by them calling in the Conservatives calling in the guy from Wetherspoons as a youth leader when he's 63 or whatever it was, and had no idea. But it was the fact that he was supposed to be, representing people, and he also set himself up as this sort of, I've got a different lifestyle, I've been through addictions, I've been through this, that, and the other, I'm the celebrity survivor, as it was. But he wrote this book, Addiction, which I have a particular problem with, because he obviously monetarized the 12-step system for his own gains, but there you go. And it's very difficult when you're supposed to look at yourself and change yourself, and then he's by what he's doing with this is he's not changed. He's got rid of the effects, but not the cause, as it were. So if he's still getting on with those addictions in terms of being a quote unquote, as I had in a well-known Lothario, Muhammad Ali said, if you're still chasing the same things at 40 that you were when you're 20, then you haven't evolved.
It also means you lost the argument years ago, and you should change your argument, because arguments are all about collecting together majorities. As you well know, it's the political stance. If you haven't got a majority, you don't get to have a say. One of the other issues, as I said, in my earlier days when I was an elected trade union official, this was the early days of the women's movement. Yeah. So there was a big issue, and we'd forced British Telecom, as it then became, we'd forced them to start recruiting women as engineers. Proper, going up telegraph poles and down manholes, which was seen, obviously, especially with the guys coming back from the war. You couldn't have a woman going down a manhole or up a telegraph pole. So they could only be cleaners or work in offices or whatever they saw as. But we changed that attitude. But part of that movement is we set up a thing called a Women's Advisory Committee. We were one of the first unions that set up a women's group inside the union. And I'm proud that I was asked by the women in our union to be the first chair of the Women's Advisory Committee. And I asked them, a year or two down the line, after I'd been doing the job for a while, why is it that you selected a bloke? There's enough women. All the other people on the committee were women. There were no other blokes around. Why is it that you chose me? And they were quite, blunt about it. One, you understand women's issues, and two, more importantly, you understand how the organisation works so that you can influence others. And if you take that from the Brand point of view, just take it at its purest. He knows how to manipulate the organisation to get what he wants out of it. The only thing that can stop that, the only thing that could stop me is my organisation saying, OK, you've had your time, Alf, as the chair of the committee. We want to put a woman in, whatever. One of the things I insisted on when I became chair was I had a woman alongside me who would learn from my experience and it's not my experience about women's issues, because I learnt so much from these women. It was unbelievable, even things that my own family hadn't taught me. But the one thing that I could pass on was how the organisation worked, how you manipulated through the organisation, how you got to the ear of the General Secretary, so that you could say to the General Secretary, when you're at conference, we want you to say and do this. So it is about influence. Unfortunately, Brand is influential, but for the wrong reasons. And I don't care about his conspiracy stuff. That's by the by, isn't it? Like I said, you could get John on here and talk all day about that. And I've shared the microphone.
I've always said that,
John.
if you go online, you'll find something saying the world is well run by 12-foot ginger hamsters called Nigel.
Yeah, but there's still a flat Earth society in existence today, and everybody goes, what? There's still people who believe that the Earth is flat. You're never going to change it. And people are entitled to their opinion. But what Brand is doing, it's not about opinion. He uses his opinion as a new influence stick. And he uses this, I'm now the big... Dave earlier on was talking about Julio Iglesias.
Yeah.
And you said that you went to one of his concerts.
I didn't. I was no. In my defence, I was outside his concert. I was never actually inside the concert.
Whatever.
I was walking past.
But the claim was that nearly everybody in the audience was a woman.
Because he was a woman, yes.
Absolutely.
Right.
So his influence, because he was a star and because he was good, his influence was massive. And if he'd have started misbehaving, what is it?
What do you mean? If Julio Iglesias started misbehaving...
So what's the name come on? And she said, he's the father of he's the father of Spain,
Well,
so,
apparently
yeah.
so. Can I go to the WhatsApps, please, before Julio gets on the phone, or at least his lawyer? Great, this coming in. Great viewpoint, Giles. I have seen so often in my life this silly season distraction. Why the Russell Brand thing now? There is something wrong with the timing of this reporting. I do wonder what else is about to happen behind the curtain. Passionate chat as usual. Thanks, guys. Chaz and Gloria, UFO 2. P.S. It's raining in the Mar Menor. There you go. Meanwhile, Paul, Russell Brand knew this might be coming since 2017 and the Me Too movement. He's been shunned by mainstream UK TV for a few years now. Hence, he reinvented himself as a conspiracy theorist. He strategically cultivated and groomed a mentally malleable cult following that distrusts governments, the establishment, the media, and in this case, women. Also, note how the right-wing media are targeting the BBC again, even though other TV channels and production companies employed Brand. And this one, so refreshing. The anti-misogynistic vibe coming through the airwaves this morning. Too late for me, but thank you on behalf of all our daughters and granddaughters. Men are finally speaking up. However, the cynicism is waiting for the Andrew Tate supporters to call in. A break and then back with more Viewpoint.
TRE.
Talk Radio Europe. Viewpoint with
Giles Brown.
Always lively. Joined in the studio by Tim Stafford and Alf Brewer. Quick one saying here, Brand can continue getting high on his other drug of choice, the Spotlight. Interesting one indeed. We're talking Russell Brand for the next 6 minutes, and then the second half of the show, going to be going over to talk to the owner of a Bully XL dog. Of course, these dogs banned by Rishi Sunak last week. Dogs/owners, give me a call if you want to get in touch with the show. Let me know if you think there's worth a story. This is a worthwhile story. Is it just the media having a pop at a truth seeker such as Brandy? There's numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
And those are the ways to get in touch with us. Somebody's come in saying sex addiction is not a real thing. Okay, I know this is not the intent, but even calling that gives it much more credence. Thanks for the show. I'm a bloke and this all creeps me out. Men have to do more way earlier on with creeps like this to stop them in their tracks. It shouldn't have come to this. One of the accusers says it's an open secret. Somebody says Russell Brand was hardly desperate for female company. He had plenty of admirers. They were called groupies in my day. Why would he need to take sex by force when he had so many willing partners? Yes, indeed. 952 78 4000. Very interesting that Brand is aligning himself with right-wing alpha males who will circle the wagons around him and denigrate his female accusers. A lot of women have been saying that one of the facts is that the fact these women haven't come forward till now, as it's the way they're being treated by the police when they come forward to these things.
And the media. They're all
we had this
guilty until proven guilty.
Yeah, but we had this thing, didn't we, as well, about the people saying, well, why don't they name the accusers as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
As a legal man yourself.
Yes, I think one of the problems with this particular case is that because Russell Brand has been a guru, very wise word there used by Giles earlier on, to the conspiracy theorists of this world, whose viewpoint, to use a wonderful word, viewpoint, is that with cognitive dissonance, in other words, they don't appreciate, value or trust the evidence, that this is what signifies a conspiracy theorist. He's a guru for them. The next thing that is very likely to happen is that those people will step up to the plate using social media and make aspersions that Russell Brand is the victim in some sense. That'll be what is used. But you can override this with an overpowering sense of moral justice coming from the males in our society and especially the females, that this kind of behaviour will not be tolerated. And law aside, and one hopes that that is all dealt with properly. There is a sociological question to answer against these conspiracy theory, cognitively dissonant people who will be coming into the fore. And here is an example of modern society. Trial by press may be, but exposure by press is the better way to put it.
What's happening here, just quickly, from Jeff and Manga. Great show as always, thank you. Why is it taking so long for these accusations to come to light? Could it be that the powers that be are not liking the subjects he's exposing on his channel?
I'm not...
Four-year investigation from the Times.
Again, we're back to my favourite subject is the way the media represent what's going on. So they've got this brand thing, whatever the timing, I don't know, but I'll tell you what it's done. It's now taken politics and the running of the country off the agenda because it's now all about brand. And if it hadn't been that, they were going to attack, and they have been attacking, they daft things. The Blairites are back in control of the Labour Party. Where do these people... The only reason they use that word is because Blair has got some stigma about him that if you get Starmer, you get Blair. If you get Blair, you get a war. If you get a war, you get... Yeah, it's such junk reporting that they do. And now they're saying, you can't trust Starmer with Brexit because he's going to go and renegotiate the Brexit deal. There's no way on this planet that Starmer or anybody else from Britain is going to ever go and negotiate a new Brexit deal with Europe when Europe have said, you get on with it, you left, you want to come back, you use the euro, you use this,
just
use
quickly,
that.
Just want to come, sorry to...
And now they're going to take it off the agenda because they couldn't get it off with the triple lock on pension. We'll hide that.
Yeah.
Triple lock on pensions, and people say, Alf, why do you think you should have a vote in the UK? I'll tell you for why. Because I want the triple lock to stay on pensions, and that's a Tory thing, not a Labour thing.
Just quickly, Andrew Neil's come on social media, a lot of nonsense about trial by media, Russell Brand. The media has no power to try and or convict. This is Andrew Neil, Brillo himself, but it has responsibility to research, reveal and expose wrongdoing, which it has done in the Brand investigation by Channel 4 and The Times. Responsibly and thoroughly in this case. It is proper journalism, which the so-called alternative media, like Brand himself these days, has neither the patience nor resource nor expertise to carry it. It just obliviates and spreads conspiracies based on fake news, while the much despised mainstream media still does the necessary heavy lifting. Going to the international and national news and then back for more Viewpoint. We'll be discussing the issues of dangerous dogs. News up next.
TRE.
Talk Radio Europe.
Discuss, challenge, inform, comment, Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe.
Giles Brown.
Live comment and discussion with studio guests.
Viewpoint.
Welcome back to Viewpoint. Always live, always lively. Joined in the studio by Alf Brewer and Tim Stafford. If you want to get your viewpoint across this morning.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Going to be speaking to the owner of what's now been classified as a dangerous dog in about 7 minutes or so, but we're still talking brand for the next 7 minutes. 7 minutes. Alf, you're nodding your head sagely there.
Well, yeah, because Andrew Neil always amazes me because he writes for a nice left-wing paper. Never got a right-wing view in his head, and he comes out with this absolute garbage. You can't have trial by media. We can't put any in prison. Of course they can't. But I tell you what they can do, and what they do is they destroy people's careers. So, like with the Cliff Richards thing, the media jump on it.
Yeah.
There's a big media thing, and technically, I mean, I don't think he retired, but that was the end of Cliff Richard, as far as it went. He disappeared into his place in Portugal. His what do they call a winery? Well, a place where vinegar. Yeah.
Vineyard.
No, vinegar. That's
right.
what it tastes like.
All right. You can be the judge of that anyway.
But, you know, Andrew Neil says these things as if the media doesn't care. They destroy careers, they destroy people, they can set, and create platforms. And that's why it's difficult. And we've said before, they don't name the person who's doing it. They have this case because it's brand, so they're not naming the victims. And you go, well, they should name the victims. And you go, well, that just makes it worse, because what the media then do immediately is they get on and investigate all of the people with the complaints, and they expose all their lives. The media do that, so it is trial by media. And then what's even worse is you got, if a criminal case comes from it, if there's an allegation, a criminal allegation, then you have to go to court. You tell me, I did my jury service when I was in the UK, you tell me where you're going to get 12 people that never read a newspaper, never look at the television, never hear a radio, never hear conversations, and you're going to get 12 people who haven't made their minds up before they walk into that court. And that's always the problem, which sometimes you have to say, I don't agree with it for everything, but sometimes on occasion you have to take a group of judges, a panel of judges, and say, you should be the ones looking at the evidence that's been provided, not because they're 12 just men and women, because they've been distorted by the media. You know they've been distorted by the media. That's not that judges couldn't be, but the judges have got that ability to go over the top of that, become better than that, and take things into account and then make a judgment. They operate something like that in America. The closest we come to it, I think, in the UK are industrial tribunals. You don't have juries on industrial tribunals. You have a sidekick union person and a sidekick from whatever government, and you have a solicitor type person, barrister usually, as the chair.
Yeah, but I mean, all this would have been legal. Just want to get to some of the WhatsApps. I wonder if Russell Brand will buy his way out, just like Prince Andrew did. Great show, by the way. Another one says, if it does turn out to have been an open secret, then organisations that employ him must be held to account. So, I mean, we've gone to this before, haven't we? Open secrets.
Well, I think most of them have already made their decisions, haven't they? His ex-manager has gone, and his latest manager's talking about it. The people running the X thing have got rid of him. His advertising people have gone.
Well, the YouTuber said he can still post, but he can't make money out of it. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's where he makes his money. How many? 6.5 million or 3.5 million, all paying to listen to this guy's antique views. I can't stop what people do. Like I say, they're entitled to their opinion. But,
Sure. Yes, I think, going back a couple of squares to Andrew Neil's comments there, that what he's attempting to do in saying what he says is to separate the media, mainstream media, from what is published on social media. a man in Battersea sitting there with his laptop, publishing plausible balls, has not the same credibility as a highly trained journalist whose whole ethos is to do with, or the whole credo is to build up his reputation as an investigative journalist who's in command of the facts. I don't disagree with the idea that all mainstream press has a political bias, and certainly we can see that all too evidently now that we couldn't see that perhaps before. But that there is a difference between social media comment and then that which is published in newspapers, all of which is pretty discreditable to a large extent. But it's the balance of evidence and investigation that we're looking at here.
Going to take just quickly.
And worse than that, everybody says, and politics should stay out of it as well. We had a conversation last week, didn't we, about keeping politics out of sport, and I will maintain it. Politics is in everything we do. So, that number 10, what's it got to do with number 10? What's this brand stuff got to do with number 10, other than it's the BBC? Yeah, but they will get involved. Every single issue, every single thing we do in our whole lives all has some political content to it, whether we like it or not, and you have to manage it. So politics in sport, it's going to happen, Peter. We're the best will in the world. Politics in this stuff is going to happen. Andrew Neil will want to talk politics. After he's finished saying what he says about the media, there will come a point. But who's going to control the media if it isn't the politicians?
952-78-4000. Going to take a quick break, and then we're going to go back and talking about American XL Bullies, dangerous dogs with an owner.
This is Talk Radio Europe. Viewpoint
with
Giles Brown.
And we're getting away from Russell Brand for a minute because last week, American XL Bully Dogs, it was announced they're going to be banned by the end of the year in the UK following a series of attacks. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said it came after it emerged a man had died after being attacked by two dogs suspected to be XL Bullies in Staffordshire, and following video of another attack that went viral when an 11-year-old girl suffered serious injuries. It's ignited the debate about dangerous dogs once again. Joining me live from Glasgow is the owner of an XL Bully, Cameron Bell. Cameron, good morning to you.
Good morning, Giles. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, tell us about your dog, first off, before we get into the whys and the why nots.
Well, my dog is originally sort of a rescue dog.
Yeah.
So he has 55 kilos of love, softness, gentleness, and yeah, that is exactly. And he's just turned 2, so
yeah. But they look quite. Shall we say? Could you say that? I mean, it's for those who don't know what an XL Bully likes. Can we say it's like a Staffordshire Bull Terrier, but 55 kilos of Staffordshire Bull Terrier with different ears?
Kind of, yeah. The ears, it just depends. They cut the ears in some countries. In the UK, they're not allowed. So, but you can say the same from a German Shepherd.
Yeah.
A German Shepherd looks evil, and it's a big lump of a dog. And through the years, they've tried to ban German Shepherds. They've tried to ban Dobermans, Rottweilers. So, I mean, where do we stop?
Yeah, I mean, what attracted you to Kobe? Was it the fact you were? Did you go out looking for an XL Bully, or was it, you went to a rescue centre and so somebody said, Cameron, there's a dog there that I think would, you would be good for you, as it were?
No, actually, one of my friends had the litter before. He actually came from Bulgaria. And he kept on asking me whether I wanted the next litter. And I kept on saying no because I didn't have the time. And obviously I'm back and forth to Spain as well. So the boy who actually bought him paid something in the region of £15,000 for him. His grandfather was some big champion. And he had a motorcycle accident shortly after, where he was paralysed with his waist down. So he told my my friend to give him to a good home. And again, he kept on asking me, and I kept on saying no until he actually brought it. He did a fly move and actually brought it to show me. And yeah, that's the end of it.
So I mean, you must have been looking at horror with these attacks, as they have been awful. Yeah. But again, when you take Kobe out in public, do you get strange looks? Have you ever had people going, keep away from that one? And when you go out with him, is he muzzled? Is he on a lead? I mean, what's the situation, Cameron?
He's always on a lead. Unless there's sort of no one about, because he is a big playful dog, and he is 55 kilos. He doesn't mean any harm, but he will knock you down, if he's playing with you. Yes, you do get some sort of funny looks, but I would say probably some in the region of 95% want to touch him, want to clap him. And again, 80% of them are women.
So,
and I can walk around.
And there he was gone. Hello. Say that again. We just lost you for a minute, Cam. Say that again.
Okay. I can walk around a park in Glasgow and it'll take me 25 minutes. If I'm walking around with Kobe, it'll take me at least an hour because I keep on getting stopped because people just want to clap him.
So, what's your reaction then when the British Prime Minister says this is a dangerous dog? I mean, we're not talking a cull here, but we're talking. They'll have to be licensed, they'll have to be neutered, there's going to be a sort of amnesty approach. I mean, what's your reaction to that? And obviously, you've got Kobe for the right reasons, but a lot of people have got these dogs because they look like they mean business, and they pathetically use them.
Exactly. That's the problem. Is how can you say it? It's like having a Rolex watch in your wrist. The people who are buying them for the wrong reason are doing specifically that, just to show off and to make them actually aggressive. They want to be seen walking down the street so that they can say one word or a noise and the dog will bark or growl at someone, just to have that feeling of empowerment, if you would like to say, but it's totally the wrong reasons. And dogs like that, all dogs should be trained.
Yeah, absolutely. And anybody knows, obviously, is the fact that, to be honest with you, you're probably more threatening than Kobe, to be honest with you, Cameron.
unless his tail hits you. That's the most dangerous thing about him.
So what's next, Cameron? I mean, what are you going to do with what's going to happen with you and Kobe then? Just quickly, because I know you're busy and I know you want to get on. So
I'm just going with the flow. There is no way that anyone's taking Kobe away from me, and I can tell you that plain and simple. Anybody who would like to come and see Kobe, i.e. whether it be police or anyone like that, is more than welcome to come and see him. And they could literally do anything to him. He's actually been nipped a couple of times walking along the street by little Frenchies, the wee French bulldogs.
Yeah.
He's been nipped twice and drew blood for a couple of these little dogs, and literally just looks at them. and the owner's like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. And you're like, if your dog's going to be aggressive like that, keep him on a leash.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, carry on.
And I was going to say, because another good friend of mine, Jerry, who also rescues pit bulls, he says that the breed he's been bitten by most is Chihuahuas. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah, totally. The small man syndrome.
Don't know what you're talking about there, but the panel are laughing their
Good one, Cameron.
So just a quick question for Cameron. Tim, you got a quick question for Cameron? You're going to make a comment there, just quickly.
Yes, Cameron. So what you're saying there is that this is which animals on the other end of the leash is the answer. I mean, it's not the dog. It is, as we know, all to do with the owner.
It's totally to do with the owner. Absolutely, 100%. It's down to the owner. And don't get me wrong. I mean, you can't. if you're not a trainer of canines, you cannot trust a dog if you're making that dog aggressive to certain people, or whenever you want to make it aggressive just to show off. You don't have the training to do that. There's obviously certain work dogs out there that are trained to do that and trained well. But these people who have got these types of dogs, and it's not only XL bullies, they use them just as that power trip.
Yeah.
And they don't have the knowledge to do it. And it's a shame because they're making the dog something that they're actually not.
Cameron, I know you're busy. I know you're just heading towards the airport. So thanks for joining us. Send our regards to Kobe, and hopefully we'll see you back in Spain very, very soon indeed. Cameron Bell, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thanks, Giles. Take care.
Talk Radio Europe. Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe with Giles Brown.
Always live, always lively. Thanks to Cameron Bell up in Glasgow for letting us know about XL Billies. If you want to get involved, you've got a thought about that, here are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
So exciting! I just snapped the lace on my trainers. There you go. That's what you call an intense show. Right then, everyone. This is in on the WhatsApps +34 645 99 67 95. Everyone that has a dog that bit somebody or mauled them to death all tell the same story. It's gentle, it's loving, it's never done anything like this in the whole time I've cared for it. They all snap at some point and do something vicious. You will live after a Chihuahua bite, not after some of those big dogs. Depends where it bites you, I suppose. But dog owners, 952 78 4000, because or any other, any other pets. Perhaps your budgie has a mean streak. I don't know. Give me a call, 952 78 4000. You're nodding your head sagely there, Tim, about dogs and owners, and it's back to the old trope, isn't it? But I think Cameron made an interesting point about people getting dogs for the wrong reasons. If you see 95% of the time, you see somebody with a large dog like that, and you think, oh, blimey. I mean, you do cross the streets, Tim.
Yes, there's protection dogs. But actually, I mean, if you look at the sort of wider view of, or our understanding of dogs, I mean, take, for example, an Alaskan team of huskies who took, because it wasn't possible in any other way, a sled full of diphtheria medicine for children who were suffering in that in a remote town. Heroic. And other heroics from dogs are wartime message carrying, the great companionship that they have for many people, great loving companionship, very valuable. And all dogs are subject to to a certain trainability and to the attitude of the owner.
To the lines we go, 952 78 4000. Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Morning, Giles. It's Peter.
Morning, Peter.
Good morning. These dogs, I agree with anyone so far that said it's the owners and not the dogs, and that's, in my opinion, 100%. There's no deviation. You don't get born bad dogs. It's about the way they are nurtured rather than their nature. I've owned dogs all my life. I had family dogs as a child. The first dog with my partner way back in the early 90s, which happened to be a pit bull cross with the old English bull terrier, pure white with a pink nose. I got him almost by default, rescue dog. A friend of mine was rescuing fighting dogs at the time. And looking at the mother of the dog, I didn't expect what I was going to end up with, much bigger and more powerful dog as a boy dog. Hand-reared, I hand-reared it. Wasn't great with other dogs because it had been hand-reared. It didn't learn its etiquette from its litter mates. It was my responsibility to make sure that dog became a socialised and proper dog. And as in anything I enjoy doing, I go over the top 101% and make sure that I dot every I and cross every T. And I've had many, many dogs since. I own dogs now very misunderstood dogs, not aggressive-looking dogs at all. So that's totally the opposite, but probably the most misunderstood dogs on the planet, and that's Dalmatians. So everybody wants to pet them, everybody wants to see them, everybody wants to walk up to them and hug them because they've seen the movies. Yet a Dalmatian is
Yes.
20, 25 kilos. So you're looking at a 45, 50-pound dog with a huge chest that can run 50 miles a day without even thinking about it because they were bred as carriage dogs. So I get the opposite. Everybody wants to come over and look at the dogs and touch the dogs, and but they don't understand dog etiquette. And going back to these bullies, there's no such thing as a bully, XL bully. No such thing. It's a crossbred dog.
Yeah.
And it's been bastardized since what happened was they're called dogos, as in the Dogo Argentina, the Dogo, all the masking breeds, and they cross them with a pit bull. The pit bull is for the aggressiveness, and the Mastiff is for the size. So you couldn't take that dog without doing a DNA on it and checking it and say whether what the parentage of that dog was. But all the drug gangs, the Crips and the Bloods and all that years ago used to use them as drug dogs, mule dogs, to keep them in a house to keep the place protected. Not only that, they were putting them on steroids, or putting them on speed, amphetamine, and this thing has snuck down now. And any cow, old-headed guy that lives on a council estate wants one on his arm and never walk it, never exercise it, never give it, as the Japanese say, it's ikigai. You need a purpose in life, and a dog especially. Now, my dogs will run all day, every day, and they will stop when they're told to stop. And my old pit bull cross, if he ever got into an altercation, which is very, very rare, on my command, he'd stop. But the amount of people that allow their dogs to run to other dogs and then say they only want to play, and they don't understand dog etiquette. They don't know what's going on in that dog's head. And when people say keep them on a lead, you put dogs on a lead, sit down on that coast and have a coffee in the morning, see how many dogs are at each other's throats whilst on a lead with inexperienced owners, or owners with the wrong dogs. You see many dogs that are bred for pulling, dogs are bred for fighting, dogs are bred for chasing, dogs are bred for security, and these people have them as pets. And I've noticed now there's a big fashion of these Malinois. Have you ever seen a Malinois? Belgian Malinois?
I'm just thinking possibly, yeah.
It looks like a German Shepherd, but skinnier and fitter.
But the Belgian Malinois, they are browny colour, aren't they, with normally dark noses? Yeah.
But they call them land sharks. And just go on YouTube and put in the Malinois and see what it does. It's phenomenal. Yet people are taking these and walking up and down the coast as I see at the moment. There's 3 I see on a regular occasion. Those things are the most, they're the Usain Bolt of the dog world. You just cannot, that you have to give that dog a purpose to get up in the morning and get out and do something. Now, we all should know this. And the problem is with our dog world at the moment, it's the same as our children's world and the same as our teenager world, the student world, is none of them have been socialised properly. They don't understand the consequences of what's supposed to be happening. Now, as you well know, I'm not someone who likes government interference. But the only way you can control this, because going back to my first dog, they circumnavigated the pit bull law by calling them, they were Irish Staffies labelled as. These XL bullies are not XL bullies, they're Dogos. And they've got Mastiffs in them, and they'll just change the name of them, and they'll just breed it with another dog. So you can't stop this unless you look at the whole dog world. Now, what should happen now is they should bring back a dog licence. And nobody should have a dog without a dog licence. That dog licence, you should have at minimum a third-party insurance. Now, you should have the paperwork with the dog. Here in Spain, if you own a dog over a certain size, as on Dave's Dog Act laws, you have to go and have an assessment, a psychological assessment. Now, I'm not saying go that far, but you must, I think, bring back the dog licence. Not only that, breeders must be registered with DEFRA and pay a huge amount of money to breed these dogs. And they should not allow to sell a dog to anyone unless that person has gone on a course to own a dog. They have the dog licence ready to go in place and the insurance ready to go in place. And that's how it should be dealt with. Because also, if you want a dog and you don't want to pay for a dog, there's plenty of rescue dogs out there. I've never paid for a dog in my life.
Sure.
And you go and get a rescue dog, but you shouldn't be allowed to take a rescue dog until you go in on certain times and you do the course with the people that train you with the dogs. Having said that, I've watched many dog trainers that are absolutely useless in what they do. And if anyone remembers Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer, I mean, that man would walk around with 20 pit bulls. It's never, ever the dog. It's the person.
Yeah.
And the problem is we're getting these guys or girls on these large sink estates that own these big dogs that don't know how to handle them. They don't exercise them. They don't walk them. They take them to the corner. They bait them on tires and things like that. And it's just a bomb waiting to go off. It's not the dog. The dog, it's the frustration in the dog. If the dog was got up, walked, taken. I mean, my two, like I said, people every time say, "Oh, Dalmatians, they're crazy." Back in the 70s, Dalmatians were deaf. Not many people knew about it. So they were labelled crazy because they weren't getting any instruction.
Yeah.
It wasn't until that changed in the 70s and 80s. But the population needs to understand animal husbandry, especially when it comes to dogs and pet dogs, because we've got these stupid women that started these handbag dogs. And as you just said, there's plenty of little yappy terriers out there nipping and biting children all the time.
Yeah.
But nothing's ever said because of their size. So we need to change the attitude of the people, governments, the local authorities, and dogs should be taken back to being dogs instead of being toys and things sat in prams.
Fashion accessories, indeed.
On huge, great big chains that are never exercised. So that's my bit on the dogs.
Thank you very much, Peter. Good points, well made indeed. 95278 4000 to the line. Once again, morning caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name, where you're calling from, what's your viewpoint, please? You're coming through really faintly. Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah, I have to call back in. I'm sorry, because that call's not coming through. It's not only about, this is on the WhatsApps, +34 645 99 67 95. It's not only about the owners. 90% of all the dogs they have mauled. Oh no, sorry, I've read that. Sorry, that one has been read before. Here we go. Gary, good morning to you. For a number of years, I was a bait man for the army and the police at Melton Mowbray. I never knew that. HQ of the Royal Army Veterinary Corps. People are the problem. And remember, you can have a dog out of control on the lead and under control off the lead. It's the owners, not the dogs. I think we can agree with that. The interesting thing is, I mean, if you were, those of us who were around in the 90s will remember that we seem to have this knee-jerk reaction against dangerous dogs. We had it before, like 20 years ago. And it's just suddenly come in that you have a dangerous dog attack and suddenly a politician will make a move like that, off the leash, as it were. Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Morning, Giles. It's Mark Wilkins. I'm standing outside
Hi, Mark.
on a supermarket. I was just listening to your previous caller, and if I'm not mistaken, and we've just done it, is that it's now obligatory to have at least third-party insurance for your dogs in Spain. A law, I think it was passed in June this year, but we've recently just been notified of it and have completed insurance just for third party. So obviously if your dog either attacks somebody else or escapes and causes a car accident, that kind of stuff is now part of the legal system here.
Yeah, the unfortunate part is it's Spain. So it's called who's going to enforce it. None of the dogs round where I live, none of them, and there's a lot. When I first came here 20 odd years ago, I think there were 3 dogs on the whole estate. This is an estate of about 500 homes. Now, every other house has got dogs. They bloody bark and they're not and it is about the owners. But as far as I'm aware, I mean, I've got a guy who lives near me and he's got 2 Afghans.
Yeah.
And if you see them, they frighten the life out of them. When they bark, they frighten the life out of you. Yeah. But they are the most placid dogs you can ever see. And by the way, they don't have to be taken on walks. Their heart isn't strong enough. Their bodies. So.
Look, Mark, I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, we have 2 Cocker Spaniels and a kind of street dog, and I'm really encouraged with the idea that Spain is ensuring that third-party insurance is obligatory, because quite simply, yes, there's a whole debate, and I've been very interested by the comments that run across your show this morning, is that there are some real problems with some dangerous breeds. But the responsible dog owner, and I don't think it's just about the owner, I think there's an awful lot about the culture of puppy farms, that it is clearly causing a real problem. But if the authorities are starting to make moves in direction of some level of control, then I think, apart from anything else, we should all sign up to it.
Well, the other thing, Mark, is the fact that if you insure a dog, you're not going to give it away at the end of Verano. You're not going to, which we see happen time and time again. We used to see it happen an awful lot, and you and I have been down here a long time, Mark. The end of every summer, and you suddenly find these poor dogs chained up, on the side of the roads by fences.
Absolutely disgraceful. Great show. I'll speak to you soon.
Good to hear from you, Mark. Take care. 952-784-1000. Alf.
One of the single issues I'll come back to, because Peter hates it. This is all down to politics.
What's your ex-Labour bully is more your Scottish National Party?
Okay, they're going to put licences on dogs.
Yeah.
Who's going to control it? How much money are people prepared to pay to have inspectors, police, or anybody else controlling all of this? How many people are going to be around, to police everything?
We want the return of the dog warden. I'm going live to the lines after dog warden. Morning, call.
Battersea.
Hey,
Battersea Dogs Home had dog wardens.
Indeed. 952-784-1000. Morning, call. You're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
It's Jimmy from Marbella.
Hi there.
The previous call is quite correct. It's a new law that's come in, and you must have insurance for up to 200,000.
Okay.
But why the law in Spain says that dangerous dogs and dogs over 20 kilos must have muzzles on when they're out, and that includes, Alsatians, pit bulls, everything. How often do you see it? You just don't. And as Alf says, who controls it?
Yeah, who's going to police the thing? Indeed.
That's right. Yeah.
You're also only supposed to have. Is it not the law that you're supposed to only have one dog on a lead? And yet we see dog walkers wandering around with 5, 6, 7 dogs on leads. We saw.
Anyway, thank you.
Thanks very much for the call in.
we saw a woman walking along the road, and she had 5 dogs on leads and 2 not on leads, walking them. And you go, what
happens when a squirrel runs across the road?
Yeah, but worse than that, this is in Benalmádena Pueblo, walking past the police station. Nobody does anything. It's about enforcement.
Indeed. Tim?
Yes, I was brought up on a farm, and we had dogs all around us of varying, for varying purposes, let us say that. And one of the saddest things I saw was a neighbouring farmer whose 3 Irish wolfhounds, there were 3 as a pack, by the way, escaped their enclosure and went across 3 counties killing lambs. And they were destroyed. Very sad, beautiful animals. They did something that was natural to them. And that sort of thing aside, where there's a justifiable, and I agreed with the principle of it, by the way, that, because they would have done it again if given the chance, one has to address what actually happens, what are the consequences of attacks such as these. For one thing, the animal, if it's attacked a child and caused serious injury, should be put down. That's my opinion. I think you can't really argue with that necessarily. I think I'm being told to just...
Got a caller on the line just quickly. Morning, caller live on TRE 952-784-1000. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Sorry, Giles, me again.
Hi, Peter.
Right. As far as policing, I don't know. People get so tied up in it. I own a car, and it's insured. And nobody's ever knocked the door and asked me to see my insurance. Never. Not once. Not a policeman. Never come round my house and asked to see my insurance. But I've been stopped. I've been involved in an accident, or someone's hit me and they asked to see my insurance. Now, if the dogs are licensed and insured, if you're in an incident or your dog's loose on a park or your dog gets into a fight with another dog, that's when you check if the dog is licensed. You don't need a huge, great team of people going around knocking everybody's door. If somebody reports a neighbour because a dog has been left for 24 hours barking its head off, they go around there and see the licence for the dog. It's quite simple. It's incidents that they would be in anyway. Then all they need to do is verify that the licence is in place, the insurance is in place, that the owner is a responsible owner, where the dog came from. Because the problem we have is these fashion dogs fetch massive money.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand is they then come from puppy farms. And quite often you're getting a dog that you didn't know, that you thought you were buying one thing and you end up with another thing. And often these dogs are inbred. They have huge amounts of problems. And not only that, the Kennel Club have been doing that for years. Many dogs have massive problems because they're inbred and bred for certain traits. And the guy that I bought my first dog off years ago, who used to rescue dogs, he had a club called Old Time Bulldog, and they spell him with the double G. And his old reason was to bring those dogs back to how they used to look 100 years ago. And when you look at a staffy, like pit bulls, people go on about pit bulls. A female pit bull is about 18 inches at the shoulder, about 35 pounds, barely any muscle on her. You wouldn't even know it's a pit bull. But most people confuse Staffordshire Bull Terriers with pit bulls.
Sure.
Staffies will carry the muscle. But it's quite easy to police. It's no different than a car. You just own something that should be registered and regulated. And then when an incident arises, you check to make sure that those procedures are in place. I don't see why it's so difficult. And you can have dog wardens.
Yep.
Gone are the days when our dogs wandered the streets. And, but the trouble is people spend more money on their dogs these days. They feed them kibble all day long. They shit everywhere. Everyone's running around with squirty bottles and things. And it's just the dogs. And they're all bred for a purpose. Like Alf just said about an Afghan. There's typical idiocracy of people that say, oh, that dog can't do this dog. Afghans are huge hunters across the desert that would go after prey of rabbits and things to feed the family. They would run for 50, 60 miles. That's what an Afghan can do. Get it off of a lead, get it loose, running across the motorway, causes an accident.
Yeah.
You could have the best owner in the world. But, these things happen. And that's the time when you can say, was the dog insured? Have you had the papers? Where did the dog come from? Who was the breeder? So I'll leave it on that one.
Thank you very much, Peter. Indeed, some bits coming.
Would you have two Afghans in the middle of Benalmadena where there's... I'll just run them around the estate. And secondly, Peter, it is different to car insurance. For instance, you may not have ever shown anybody your papers for your car insurance, but I can assure you that every time you go through one of them average speed cameras, or even over here, every time the police look at your car, every time you go into wherever it is, they check your insurance. It's done automatically.
Into the last 10 minutes of this morning's Viewpoint, if you want to get involved with today's show.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
And some more bits and pieces coming in via WhatsApp, +34 645 99 67 95, or you can call me 952 78 4000. Important information for dog owners in Spain. From September 29th, 2023, the new animal protection law will come into force, according to which, among other things, all dogs, regardless of breeds, must have liability insurance. The chip is then also mandatory. Dogs must be registered at the town hall, and apparently the new law requires every dog owner to take an aptitude test for dog ownership. What this test looks like and where it has to be done is probably not yet entirely clear. By the way, some animal species are no longer allowed to be kept as pets. So check your lists, gentlemen, because here we go. Among other things, guinea pigs, rabbits, turtles, iguanas, snakes, spiders, exotic birds, including so-called lovebirds, and a few more species, rabbits and guinea pigs and turtles.
Disease.
Disease?
Yeah.
All right.
They carry disease.
So the most... Anyway, let's leave and go.
No, they carry disease.
Ask Russell Brand. Right, okay.
Especially if you've got kids.
Oh, no, that's the subject.
Kids carry disease, you mean?
Yeah, well, sort of.
Yeah. Now, I would like to see this sort of upcoming legislation taken from the point of view of a full context of, let us say, children. Some people, some parents...
Oh, we're having a liability test for parents now.
Need to pass it. They should have an aptitude check.
I failed on all occasions there, Tim. For
sit in the average restaurant and see the number of what the Germans call Ashhill, Kinder.
What do they call them? Okay, yes, okay. I thought it was a particular dialect from the Black Forest.
No,
translated directly into English, we all know what it means.
Yes. And
ashtray. He said ashtray.
And is there legislation that deals with that? I think it's pretty much unenforceable, except for the fact that there are extreme versions of dog husbandry.
I thought we were talking about children for a minute, but go on.
Yeah, that need to be addressed. I mean, and there are particular, and I'll say breeds, but sizes of dog that may need to be licensed in certain ways, and not the whole gamut. I mean, an old lady, 88 years of age, with a little doggy,
Yorkie,
who's living on a shoestring, does not need an added expense for the love that she has.
Doesn't need an XL bully there for a moment, but yes, indeed. Some more bits and pieces coming in. Yeah, the law in Spain regarding dangerous dogs. If your dog weighs 25 kilos or more, it must be kept on a lead at all times, and you must have an insurance that will be able to pay out 125,000 euros should it cause any damage to anybody or anything. If you do not have this insurance, you can expect a 6,000 euro fine. A dog that weighs 25 kilos or more is considered a lethal, dangerous dog in Spain and must be kept on the lead at all times. Another one coming in, Paul. There's been a proliferation of dogs and dog owners since COVID. Yes, there have. I know several really tragic cases of people taking them back, especially in Spain, to shelters because they got puppies for the kids during COVID, and now we have no more COVID, allegedly. And then they've just let the dogs again. The dogs are being taken back or running free. 6 minutes of viewpoints left. If you want to get your viewpoint in about dangerous dogs, Russell Brand, anything else crossing your radar, then these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
And talking about things that should be kept off a lead, let's look at Keir Starmer's made the front pages because of his, apparently according to the Daily Mail, he's taking us back to square one on Brexit. Alf, go on, let's
back to square one.
Back to square one.
It's a pile of nonsense. He's gone to talk to the European Union because...
You see?
Well, you have to say because. Listen, there's going to be a general election not far away. Lots of the predictions is that Labour might become the government, and lots of leaders around Europe and the world, for that matter, will want to talk to the person who might become the next Prime Minister. It happens every time. It happened with Blair, it happened with John Smith even before, and he died before a general election. It happens with Gordon Brown, I remember doing his bit. They will do it, but the media have got to have a story. So the media story, and it's only the right-wing press that have done it, Starmer's going to meet the European Union, he's going to meet Macron, he's going to meet whoever else, the German Chancellor, I'm forgetting his name now. He's going to meet them because he wants to renegotiate Brexit. What a pile of dung. Everybody knows it doesn't matter what there is no way, as long as I've got one in my backside, there's no way that the UK population are ever going to accept going into the euro. It's now one of the conditions. You must join the single market. You must join the single currency. Yeah, well, they want to join the single market, but without all the trade. And Europe are going to sit there and say, yeah, we'll have you as great trading partners. You can have the same deal as Norway, Iceland, whatever, which means you'll be treated in a little bit better way, but just the same as we treat everybody else. No, you're not going to import your chicken from America that's been bleached and then try to sell it on into Europe.
Chlorinated chicken, because that was one of the things, wasn't it?
Coronation chicken.
Chlorinated, not coronation.
Coronation chicken. I said, well, we've had that. Charles don't like chicken. So, is he not vegetarian now? Well, he should be, because he spouts everything else.
Yeah.
It's just so serious, the way the media are representing whatever is happening with Starmer. And there's lots of things. I'll keep on saying, Blairites. Starmer has kicked out all the non-Blairite people and put all these Blairites in, and you go, you don't even know what you're talking about. I've never been a Blairite in my life, but I did work for Blair and I did get him elected.
The Blair babes.
The Blair babes, yeah, of course there's always going to be that sort of stuff.
So you wouldn't have that now, would you? That would be absolutely...
But the significant difference is, this is the real driving... You know what my thing is. It's about gaining power. If you are committed to winning an election, then you are going to sweep things, which is what happened when Blair was the leader. But it started before Blair. It started when they elected John Smith as the leader, when Kinnock stood aside. Because even Kinnock realised you cannot build a consortium of people who are going to do everything, and I mean everything, to win power, including setting aside some of your ideologies. You set them aside in order to win power. Because it's only when you're in power that you can change the law. It's only when you're in power that you can introduce minimum wage. It's only when you're in power that you can put more money into the NHS. It's only when you're in power that you can do something about education. It's only when you are in power. If you don't want to be in power, then let's bring Corbyn back. Let's bring any one of the loons back. I call them loons politely.
In a loving, caring kind of way.
Because politically, they're lunatics. Because they're not interested in what the general population want. They're interested in their own ideological viewpoint, which is one direction. No way would a communist get elected in the UK if they said, I'm a communist.
952 788 4000. Into the last minute or so of Viewpoint. Yes, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Hi, it's Mark again.
Hi, Mark.
Alf, I've just listened to what you have to say, and with the greatest respect, you're talking out of it. The long and the short of it is that if Starmer can get press which says that he is pro going back into some form of European association, he will get himself elected by all those Tories who are not satisfied with what has happened post-Brexit. They weren't satisfied in the whole idea of it. And yes, they are Ramoners, but the logic to it is that the UK, with the greatest respect, is a basket case currently, and without the European intervention, the European access, it's going to be a major problem going forward. Nice thoughts for the remainder of the day.
Thank you very much for that one, Mark, indeed. We're going to run out of time in a minute, but just a few more points. That this law is the dog law, meaning more and more dogs being left at refuges because... refuges, I cannot say it today, because they don't want that cost. Also, a Blair babe, that vision is going to keep me awake tonight. And some people need muzzling and microchipping. Thank you very much. And meanwhile, Gary, thank you for this. I bought a golden retriever puppy from Fuengirola Market, fed it for 9 months, never grew, conned it, turned out to be a guinea pig. Very good indeed. Very good indeed. Almost out of time. It has been my pleasure and my privilege to bring you today's live and very lively Viewpoint. My thanks to my guest Cameron Bell in Glasgow, the always entertaining Alf Brewer. Thank you, Alf.
Thank you, Giles. Thank you very much.
Indeed.
Thank you, Tim.
And you also managed to get a Malaga Football Club thing mentioned in there. And
don't forget Malaga, third in the league, going up.
There we go. And Tim Stafford.
An absolute pleasure, Giles, as always.
Yes, indeed. This show will be repeated at 7 o'clock. Stephen Ritson is live and direct from Cologne. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. I'll see you tomorrow for Let's Talk from 10 o'clock.
Expressed on Viewpoint by invited studio guests and callers do not constitute an opinion endorsed in any way by Talk Radio Europe.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this program, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit tre.radio.